the key to growth is not adding things on, it's subtracting.
What up, Vibers? Welcome back to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast brought to you by Sucre Bay. Before we jump into today's incredible conversation, I want to give a quick shout out to our presenting sponsor. Sucre Bay and I collaborated on a fragrance called Why Did I Walk Into This Room? And let me tell you, it is the essential gender neutral love letter to the ADHD community. It features beautiful notes of fresh baked cherry pie, a little light cinnamon, and absolute acceptance of who you are. You can check them out right now at sucrebay.com. All right, my friends, let me tell you about today's guest because I am so excited for you to hear this one. I recently connected with Jason Jurado on a LinkedIn live panel recently, and within minutes of hearing this person speak, I actually stopped taking my own notes and I just listened to what he had to say. Jason is a healer, an empath, and the founder of One Path. In this episode, we talk about his incredible journey from joining the Marine Corps right out of high school to doing the work that he does today with HUNA and LP and Mindfulness. We dive into what it means to grow up in a boys don't cry generation, the reality of being a true introvert, and how to use practical everyday mindfulness to quiet a busy, overwhelmed brain. He drops so much wisdom on how to stop masking and just be here in the present moment. Now, right now in the middle of our interview, we recorded a segment, as always, called Reverse the Mic, and Jason put me in the hot seat, just like all of my other guests, and he asked me some very deep questions about my very own journey and what brings me peace. And that segment is exclusive for my subscribers on Facebook and Patreon. If you are not subscribed, the episode is going to skip right over that exclusive cut. But for just $5 a month on Patreon and Facebook, you get to hear that moment. Plus, you unlock all of my ADHD deep dive library videos, and you get private behind the scenes access to my personal life and my mental health journey that I don't post anywhere else on social media. And also, it is hands down the best way to support this show, outside, of course, of watching or listening to the show, of course. But for now, my friends, sit back, take a breath, and enjoy this amazing conversation that I had with Jason Jurado. So, Vibers, I met today's guest, my friend Jason, on a LinkedIn live stream that we did recently. And honestly, like on these live streams and panels, I'm usually like taking notes because I always want to learn from people. And I found myself as you were talking, I stopped taking notes and I started just listening, right? And I knew immediately, I'm like, I have to get Jason. I got to get Jason on here, and all of that. So, Jason, I want to welcome you to the Vibe with Kai podcast. I want to start right with the beginning for you because your bio, I think it paints such a vivid picture of who you are, right? You describe yourself as a healer. You describe yourself as an empath, a person who's born into the boys don't cry world, something that I'm personally very familiar with, right?
Yeah.
I want you to take the audience back to the younger version of Jason. What was it like for you trying to navigate that sensitivity while you're just surrounded by that pressure to just be hard and tough?
Well, thank you. Yeah, and it was great being on that show
Yeah.
with you too. And I was excited when we talked about joining together. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
it's from birth. People say, "Where'd you find it?" And my first memories are of that, and seeing things, hearing things, feeling things that were, quote unquote different. Normal's a
Mhm.
horrible world, and I hate that word, but
Mhm.
I just was different, and I was having a different experience, but it wasn't talked about. It wasn't something that was expressed openly or that. And I come from a life of very male men and
Mhm.
very well. It's interesting because the women in my life were they were silent sufferers. They had this courage and this strength. It wasn't that big bravado strength that we think of when we think of strength, but it was
Mhm.
there. And so I was blessed to have that as well. I was raised by my mom. My dad was in the picture, but you know, yeah, trying to figure out and navigate about like, well, I'm feeling these emotions, but I'm being told I'm not supposed to have them. So
Sure.
what do I do, and how do I act in this world? And I jokingly, but not jokingly, say that I was so emotional I became hard,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
I just put on that mask. And
Mhm.
everyone that doesn't know me looks at. I mean, my exterior can be very stoic, and oh, he's a tough guy. I'm not. I'm sensitive. And when my mom passed away 12 years ago, I was the one that was just a puddle of snot and bubbles, snot bubbles and
Mhm.
crying and the most emotional. And my family knows that, but outside they don't really realize that. So trying to navigate that world was challenging, and it was about hiding. and wearing masks
Mhm.
and externally being something that I wasn't, and I have a couple stories maybe I'll share a little bit later about
Yeah.
how that showed up in my life. And there's three very distinct memories about being a child and making a decision. I remember the actual moments of making a decision of, well, I can't be myself anymore. And not to be a Debbie Downer, as they say, but I was looking at pictures a couple of years ago. I was looking at pictures of myself as a kid, and I was like looking at over the years. My dad gave me all the family pictures, and I was going through them, and I was like, where did my smile go? And
Mm.
about age 10, my smile in pictures really starts to disappear. And that was around the time when I really kind of gave up. That was around the time when I said, I just can't be myself, I guess. I'm just going to have to deal with in a way that gets me through the day, in a way that gets me through this life. And I'll have my internal because I'm an introvert. I say I'm a screaming introvert and I'm inside a lot.
Yeah.
And but I said, you know what? I'm gonna have to show up in ways that so I can play the extrovert really well. I'm a presenter and I was
Yeah.
in leadership and stuff, but that just came from all those years of trying to navigate through a life that I didn't fit in. I felt I didn't fit in.
Mhm.
It turns out, well, yeah, there's a huge group of us, quote unquote,
Mhm.
us out there. But at the time, it was like, well, how do I do it? And it was about masking and it was about
Yeah.
hiding and it was about just watching responses and then course correcting and saying,
Right.
"Oh, okay, I guess I can't do that, so I'll act this way." And because of this, I am an amazing mimic. I'm good at
Oh,
learning
yeah.
languages. I'm good at,
Yeah.
doing imitations because I can watch someone and I can reflect them back to them in a way that used to be it was a protection. And then I could do it for
Mhm.
fun now, but back then it
Right.
was, how do you fit in? Well, be like other people, and that's how you can fit in.
Right, and I'm curious because you had mentioned, I find it interesting that you had mentioned just now, like, "Where did my smile go?" And you said you were, like, 10 years old? I
About
think you said
10.
w around that time? I mean, going forward a couple years, I mean, right out of high school, you joined the Marine Corps, right? So, and I
Yeah.
would imagine that that played a role as well, and I said this to you on the LinkedIn live stream as well, but thank you for your service. Thank you for
Thank you.
dedicating your life to protecting this country. But you joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, and you got heavily into martial arts as well. And I'm curious, uh, looking back at all of that now with the lens of being a coach, do you think that you were trying to prove something to the world, or were you just trying to prove something to yourself?
You know, I think about that a lot because one of the
Hmm.
things that veterans that we get asked is, well, why did you join? And it's a
Yeah.
hard question to answer because we all have different answers and it comes up differently for other people. You know, I I have the blessing and the honor of being a very diverse person, like all of us,
Hmm.
but I do have that very emotional side. I'm a writer, I'm a poet, I love art, photography, and I
Hmm.
do also love physicality. I loved playing sports. I loved martial arts. And my dad was a big sports guy, but I didn't play at the level like he played, semi-pro baseball and stuff like
Hmm.
that. But it was never, well, dad wants me to, so I'm going to. I played soccer. I love soccer for almost, 4 or 5
Sure.
years. But to go back, so I felt that there was that balance in my life, and I've always kind of found my way. To your question, though, this is a response that I figured out just a few years ago, and I hope it's right. It's kind of what I came up with. I've always wanted to be of service. I
Hmm.
always wanted to help. I've always had this, I'm gonna help the underdog. I wanna be I'm gonna use my strengths to those that can't speak for themselves, whether it's speaking up in class or physically intervening. I'm not a tough guy by any means. I never dealt with that and I don't deal with that. Even it's hard to believe being
Sure.
in the Marine Corps. But I think through the Marine Corps, I found a way in the military to be of service in a way that was more acceptable because I wasn't fully accepting myself as a healer and an empath helping people. It's kind of who I was and what I did, but it just didn't dawn on me to fully go down that trail because of all the stuff I
Hmm.
was talking about, because of the other baggage I was carrying. It just didn't, it wasn't a path for me at the time. I just couldn't think of it that way. And so going into the service was literally that, being of service to a higher something bigger than myself in a way that spoke to me.
Right. And it's funny because anytime that I think of men and women in the armed forces, I think of the word, like the first word that pops into my head is discipline, right?
Right.
And I would imagine that discipline is a pretty rigid military concept, right? But nowadays you work with Huna and Reiki and mindfulness. So like how did your definition of discipline, right, from your military days change as you moved from, the Marine Corps to what you do every day now?
I think it's there. It just shows up in a different way.
Sure.
One of the beauties of life is flexibility. In NLP we say the part of this, well, it actually comes from somewhere else, but the part of the system that's the most flexible will rule the system.
Mm,
And that's the reality, is like you have to, and that's kind of what it goes back to, talking about, the species growing and surviving. It's not, we the survival of the fittest. Fittest doesn't mean that you're the strongest. It means you're the most flexible and you can change. That's
mhm,
what survives. And so when we look at life like that and say, wait a minute, I don't have to think of discipline as something that's like hard fist and strong. Discipline is just being consistent and showing up
mhm,
and doing what you say. So it shows up for me in those ways where it's like it gets me up in the morning. It helps me go towards my purpose. It helps me live my values. What's important to me? If I do something that's against my values, that little voice says, "Wait a minute, you're not honoring yourself. Course correct, change."
mhm.
And to me, that's discipline. I do have the be on time. I have the 15 minutes early is on time is late, and being being
Late is
late is
unacceptable, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
You've obviously heard that.
Oh, yeah, I love
Yeah.
it, yeah.
And my wife's the opposite. My wife, her dad was in the military, and so she
Mhm.
reacted to that. So she's like, I'll get there when I get there. So that is what that is. But so for me, discipline just shows up different ways, and it's a softer, gentler way of it's helping me go forward, not holding me back.
Mhm. I love that. I love that shift in perspective that you got to experience, and it kinda reminds me a lot of the masking that a lot of us with ADHD do. Like, we spend so much energy trying to fit this mold that we feel basically like wasn't built for us, right?
Right.
And I know that you talk a lot about like remembering who you are, and the most of us that are walking around, we're carrying like these old stories with us.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of the people that listen to this podcast are women, but there are men out there that listen, and are women that have conversations with men about these things, whether it's their father or their son, their husband, whatever it may be. For the men that are listening right now who might feel as though their job or their responsibilities, right, that they are those things, like they feel like they are their jobs, they are their responsibilities.
Right.
How do these men begin to separate their true self from the role that they've probably been playing for 10, 15, 20, 30 years?
We come onto this earth, and this is a little spiritual, but I
Yeah.
hope it flies. We come onto this planet with I am.
Mm,
That's the expression, I am. And that's the consciousness of God, you know, universe, spirit, creator, source, whatever that is to you. That's that part of us that's in us. And then we
mhm,
start to add what I call, to the right, we add that I am Jason, I am a healer, I am a husband, I am a cat
mhm,
dad, we add all these on there. And
mhm.
then you say I am my job, you know, and I know it's a real American thing where first thing you meet is, well, what do you do? And
Sure.
that's kind of who you are. And that's not fair, but that's what happens. And so when you start to look at, you reverse it back. Let me just share this real quick.
Mhm,
I use the metaphor of like a glass of water. We come onto this planet with a glass of clean, pure water, and then someone pours in a little Coca-Cola, and that's boys don't cry. And then someone pours
Mm,
in a little lemon juice, and that's, well, you have to act this way. And then someone pours in some iced tea, and that's the, well, everyone can just figure out this problem and sit still. And then you can see where that goes, and it gets
yeah,
muddy. And then when you leave this planet, this physical plane, it goes back to clear, pure water. The sooner you can start filtering out all of that we've put in, that's been put in there for you, that Coke and that tea and whatever else, you get back closer to yourself.
mm,
The key to growth is not adding things on, it's subtracting. And so
interesting.
when you can subtract all of this, I've been told it's this, I've been told that, a fact I looked up, just share real quick, that a study that did with Psychology Today magazine, 9 out of 10 men and 8 out of 10 women link manhood with being a provider.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
And that's a
Wow.
whole nother conversation that we might get a little bit into,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
heavy. And so, okay, so if that's linked to being a provider, then how would your job not be tied into being a man? Because
Mhm.
that's the story you've been told. And whether you're talking Jungian psychology or you're talking shamanic medicine, all life is story. And
Mhm.
so we are told this story, and then we repeat this story in our actions.
Mhm.
And so, kind of to go back to your question, you change that story. You
Yeah.
start saying, I am not my job. I am not this. I do these things. I do this. I do that, but I am not that. And just that shift in mindset gets you going back to your home, your core.
Mhm.
And that's how you could start to really live who you are.
Mhm. I wanna touch upon that sentiment that you just talked about because I think this is important, and, like, whenever you say, like, phrase like, that expectation that people have, right, of men sometimes, like, the things that pop up into my head are phrases like, "Suck it up," or, uh pull up the bootstraps or, brush it
Right.
off, like that kind of mindset, that kind of mantra, right? Which is like I'm not Gen X, but I am on the very, very
Close.
older millennial side of it, right? And that's how I grew up. Like, I played a lot of sports as well, and like I that's I showing emotion like that wasn't toughness was not allowed, and
Right.
I'm curious in your practice when you see a client that has been, sucking it up for decades, somebody that's been trying to just adhere to these expectations of men for such a long time, probably their entire lives. Where does the trauma usually show up first? I'm very curious about that. Like the trauma that they talk about when they're finally able to open up about it. Where does it show up? Does it show up in their relationships, their health, their ability to sit still, like you had mentioned? Like where does it show up for them?
It shows up different for a lot of different people, and it's
Yeah,
because it's how you reflect it. You and I could be walking down the street together and see an event, good, bad, or indifferent, and have wildly different opinions of what happened, and
sure.
we could see it differently. So based on that, how it shows up in your life is going to be different too. How you, once again, not to go back to it, but that story, how that story is told through your life. So yeah, it
Mhm,
definitely can show up in your health, because in my world, we talk about dis-ease is all stress related.
mm,
You hold these significant emotional events, we call them SEEs, significant emotional events, in your body. And depending on what it was, is depending on where your body you hold it. And then
mhm,
that causes tension, you hold it, and that causes a disease in that area of your body. And so definitely stress leads to that. And stress is feeling that you're not capable of handling a situation.
mm,
And so if you are not reacting to situations in the way that you were told you're supposed to, well, of course you're going to feel that you're not capable of handling them, because you were told the only way to handle this is X. But if you're
mhm,
a Y kind of person, you're like, well, I'm handling it, but I'm not doing it X, Y. So I'm wrong. And
yeah,
so that causes tension, that causes conflict within yourself. And so how does conflict show up? It shows up in your job, it shows up with your relationships, it
yep,
shows up in your partnerships, because there's a part of you that feels you are not feeling who you're supposed to be based on external expectations.
Right.
And so by
Right.
stepping back and then going, "Oh, wait a minute. I am myself, and this is how I handle this is how Jason handles it, and it's okay." That's the first step. And so it shows up in many different ways. It usually shows up in people feeling not feeling, knowing that they're not living the life they're supposed to live.
Right. Right. And you're somebody that knows that knows how to live the life because that they're supposed to live because you just said it yourself. You're an introvert, right? You're an introvert, and I would imagine you're a proud introvert. I am too
Yes.
a proud introvert, and you and I are the types of introverts where people will look at us and, like you said before, they'll be surprised, like you're not an introvert. I'm like, oh yes, the hell I am, right? And
Okay.
and you had mentioned in the past that you actually take issue when people try to use the term introvert for what it's not, right?
Right.
So, like, Jason, let's set the record straight. Can you set the record straight for us? What does being a true introvert actually mean to you, and why do you think so many people get it wrong?
So, and thank you for this opportunity because it is something that I do talk about a lot, a fair amount, just because it just puts us in the wrong place. When you go back to people talking about introvert, extrovert, they're talking most about the MBTI, the Myers-Briggs, right?
Hmm.
And the Myers-Briggs comes from Jung. And so you look at Jung's work, and just to paraphrase, and I know I'm not an expert in Jungian psychology, but it's really about how you perceive your external world, how you process your external world. Extroverts process their external world internally. So
Hmm.
extroverts are people that have to go inside. So if somebody gives you a ton of instruction and you're quiet, they're like, "Are you not listening to me? Are you not hearing me? You're not getting it." It's like, "No, I just had to go inside to process what you were saying to me." Where an extrovert is processes their external world externally. So they're going to be like, "Oh, so you mean this, or you mean this, and you mean this, and you mean this. Oh, I got it, boss. I'm on top of it, and whatever." It drives as I when I was in the world of leadership, it drove my supervisors crazy when they first met me because I was doing just that. I would go inside and process what they would tell me and then be like, okay. And then you talk about discipline. My discipline said, well, there's no option but to accomplish it. So I don't need to I don't need to tell you I'm going to get it done because I don't see an option other than getting it done. So an
Hmm.
introvert is someone that goes inside. What we put that bad label on introverts is, oh, well, they don't like people and they
Right.
only now this is a slippery slope because it's not that you don't want to be alone. You do like to be alone because when you're alone, you have that quiet and you can process and really just come home and just be present inside. That's where you're happy, right? Because that's
Hmm.
where you process.
Yeah.
And when there's too much commotion outside, it's hard. So it's
Hmm.
not that you don't like people, it's just that you're more comfortable not being around that many
Yeah.
people. The
Yeah.
question that in my branch of NLP we say is the quick one, the Myers-Briggs I think has 25 questions about introvert extrovert on both sides. But it's like when you go to recharge your batteries, would you rather be alone
Right.
or one person, or would you be rather be with a group? And there's people that are like, no, let's I want to recharge. Let's go have a party and go out and have fun. And people are like, I want to
Hmm.
recharge. I'm going to stay home and read a book. That's kind of tells you the introvert extrovert stuff. So it's not that you don't like people. It's not that you don't want to be around people. It's not that you dislike people. It's just that you are more comfortable when you go inside and you have that moment to just breathe
Yeah.
and remove all that expectation because we have guides that tell us because we're social animals
Hmm.
and so, we do vocal bursts. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mhm. Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Have a conversation with somebody and don't do vocal bursts when they're talking to you. And they're like,
Right.
"Oh, are you not listening? Are you not paying attention?"
Right.
And it's the nods like we do, the nods and the yes and eye
Yeah.
contact and stuff. So it's wired in our nervous system to look for that. But we as introverts, we don't need that as much because we're
Yeah.
inside and we're happy inside going, "Yeah, I'm processing. I'm good. I got it."
Hmm.
So that would
Yeah.
be my little spiel on that.
I love it because I also talk about it all the time because I always remind people, to your point, that it's just about the energy, right? Like if you put me in a room and I have to schmooze, I'll
Right.
schmooze. Like I'll be
Mhm.
fine. Like if I have to do it, I work at a job where I have to talk with my clients every day. I'm around people every day. I'm a social media content creator. Like I'm constantly putting myself out there.
Of
I
course.
don't mind being around people. I'm just selective about who gets my energy and how much of
Yeah.
my energy they get.
Yeah.
That's it. And sometimes like people will say, well, how can an introvert, live in the city? I'm like, it's actually very easy. It's actually really easy for an introvert because especially in like major cities like Philly, I spent a lot of time in Philly and New York. It's not like people are talking to you.
Right.
Like if anything, people are avoiding you.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
Yeah.
avoiding you, and like you're doing your own thing, they're doing theirs, and so it's like it's really easy for me to be among people. It's tough for me to be with people.
Yeah.
Does that make
Love it.
sense?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And
that
so like I
engagement.
consider myself an introvert. Yeah, and I always say because people are like, you don't seem shy, and I'm like, I'm not shy.
Mm-mm.
I'm not shy at all.
Yeah.
I'm not. But that doesn't mean that, like just because I'm not shy doesn't mean I'm not an introvert. And
Exactly.
introversion is a spectrum, and my type of introvert might be different than yours, and
Yeah.
that's totally okay. I say this to back you up, Jason, because I just want all the introverts out there to know that it's okay. You don't,
Yes.
because introverts mask all the time,
Hmm.
and it's like just be you and own it.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that you had written to me, and I thought this was really, really powerful. You wrote, "True strength is asking for help." I love that, right? It sounds it sounds beautiful and it's heartfelt, but in practice, it feels terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, why do we think that we, especially as men, or just anybody in general, why do you think that we conflate asking for help with failure or weakness?
Because we have a society that talks about you got to do it yourself and you have to
Hmm.
make it happen and you got to take advantage of the things, and it's it's the ego. I'm going to go a little farther for that. It's the ego. And the ego is the part of you that thinks you're separate.
Hmm.
And it does come from the stories we're told. It does come from, you better figure it out, boy. You got to get it
Hmm.
done. You better,
Yep.
you got to handle it. And I just started a new client tonight, and we were talking, and she said the same thing. So it's not a male female thing. It's
Hmm.
just it's a maybe generational. It's just a thing that we're taught as kids because, parents want to do the right thing. There's no manual for being a parent, and they want you to be independent. So when you leave the house, so to speak, that you can take care of yourself. They don't realize that drilling it into you that you have to be able to take care of yourself also means asking for help and
Hmm.
calling a plumber and calling a carpenter.
Yeah.
You don't have to do your plumbing yourself. You can, it's fun, but you don't have
Yeah.
to. But I think that you gets drilled into you, and it becomes once again identity of, well, I'm not independent, so I'm weak.
Mm,
And so what's the opposite of weak? We think is strength. And so we go, well, if that makes me weak, then what makes me strong? Being
mm.
independent. And so you really just focus on, I have to do that. And whether it's somebody that just grew up as, well, everybody. Actually, I don't even want to name names because it shows up for everybody that way.
Yeah. I want to talk about this. I want to challenge even more here because I feel
Mhm.
like when society tells us to open up, like we'll do that, but sometimes it feels like when we do, we either get rejected or we get judged for being too emotional, right? How do you coach somebody to stay vulnerable when the world I feel hasn't caught up yet with that level of openness?
It starts within. As within, so without. It starts with you having that confidence where, I've always been a confident kid. I've always been, for whatever reason, I've always been very strong and mentally, and it kind of juxtaposes against masking. But I knew who I was inside, and I masked externally just because. And I'm the hardest on myself because of that.
Mhm.
So if you tell me, oh, you messed up, whatever, okay, all right. But if I feel that I messed up, I'm like, man, Jason, I use my middle name. I'm like, Jason Paul, you screwed up, man. What are you doing? Whatever. And so I'm hard on myself. And so as we look at that, when you start inside and you build up that strength inside, it doesn't matter what people externally say. And it's not that, oh, I don't care what you say. It's you're not going to change my opinion of myself because of it. So I start there, so I start clearing out all that. I help them clear out all that stuff that's holding them back from attaching themselves and rediscovering who they truly are. And that's where, so to that point where, everyone's just trying to get along. Life's challenging for all of
Mhm.
us. And sometimes people are just trying to get by. People are just trying to make it happen, and they're like, I ain't got time for you. I got my
Yeah.
own stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between, we the in the Buddhist world they say compassion is a verb, taking action, and the Dalai Lama talks about sloppy sympathy. And
Mm.
compassion is, I feel for you, and I see that I'm going to help you. I'm going to take action. I'm going to do something that's positive and helping. And sloppy sympathy is either not doing anything and going, "Oh man, that sucks. Sucks to be you," or
Mhm.
trying to help in a way that actually impedes your growth. And just real quick, they use the story of, if there's a virus outbreak in a foreign country and you want to help, but you're not a doctor, you're not trained in virology or whatever it is, and you fly over there, you're just going to be one more sick person.
Yes.
So that's sloppy sympathy. That's not helping. And so the same way with our lives, where we get into that. And so, well, we don't want to make waves. We don't want to hurt that. And we're just trying to get by. When I was a youngster and I was in the 90s, and my beat poetry and spoken word, and I
Yeah.
wrote a poem about, don't ask me how I'm doing, because to both of our chagrin I might tell you. you know and that's this life that we live. We have these pleasantries, these platitudes, or how you doing. Don't, God forbid, you tell somebody how you're doing.
Right.
And so when it comes down to it, you have to be strong inside and know that you can handle it regardless of how you react to me. I'm confident in who I am myself, and I'm going to ask for help. And if people are like,
Mhm.
why are you asking for help? It's like, because I need help, I need support, you should
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah.
I'm the advocate for
It
asking for
feels
help.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So hopefully that kind of clarifies a little better.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about you, is that you help people accomplish their goals while still honoring their own path and understanding that their path may look a little different than others. And I love that because, a lot of people, especially I'm 38, and a lot of people my age are either are married or getting married, having children,
Right.
have a lot of things that are a lot more traditional. So it's very easy for people like me sometimes to look at some of this stuff and feel like we're not on the right path,
Right.
and like and it's also hard because I feel like the world loves a standard timeline, right?
Hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
curious how you work with clients to help them understand that their different path isn't the wrong path, especially when when we're watching our friends and our family and peers hit these traditional milestones. How do you help people navigate that kind of mentality?
I not with the client, but just conversational here. I think, that cliches are cliches for a reason, and they say comparison is a thief of joy.
Mm,
And that's what happens. We can start comparing ourselves, and then it just takes all the wind out, because you start like, well, that's better, that's worse, that's whatever. We don't have time for that.
mhm,
My company's name is One Path. And people ask me, like, does that mean there's only one path? And it's like, no, it actually comes from a Ram Dass quote that says we're all just walking each other home.
mhm,
And we know where that home is. Okay, now the top of the mountain is always the top of the mountain. We're all going to end up, whatever your belief system is, we're all going to end up at that top of the mountain. There's many
mhm,
paths though to the top, and I help people find their path. It starts with respect for the model of the world. So let's, if you and I were working together, okay, where you're at and what you're doing, I respect it. That's your
mhm,
journey. But here's where it gets challenging, and this is where I start with people. Most people don't know where they want to go. They know where
mm,
they
yeah,
don't wanna go. They know where they don't want. They know what they're told they should want, but they don't truly know what they want. So we start with, well, where are you? Where are you currently at in your life? Let's be honest and let's talk. Where are you currently at? Okay. Now, where do you want to go? Well, I don't want this. And no, 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 no. When you start to say, I don't want, ask yourself the
yeah,
question, what do I want instead? And so
yeah,
through doing that work, and that's a repetitive, I spend 2 hours with the clients the first time I meet them, and we really get down to the nitty gritty. helping them find out, well, what do you want? Not what were you told, not the shouldas, we should
Mhm.
ourselves to death, as they say, but what do you truly want out of this life? Where do you want to go? And then, okay, now let's start a path. Let's start a journey to help you get there. So where are you at? Where do you want to go? And let's start. And we cut away all of the, like I said, all those, well, I'm supposed to, and I should, and my brother does this, and my sister does that, and my cousins. And let's start with you. What do you truly
Mhm.
want? And I just listen. And honestly, that's usually the first time someone's actually had someone ask them something that deep and listen to them in their lives. And that's where we
Mhm.
start.
Do you feel as when people are on their path, do you feel as though one of the things that kind of hold people back sometimes is their inability to let things go?
Hmm.
Is like they're holding on to things that are probably either slowing them down or making them deviate from the path? Like what is with your clients and your experience, what is the biggest resistance that you see people go through? I know it's different for everybody, but I'm curious, like, what you generally see resistance wise from people as they're, walking their path.
You know, two main things, and one is forgiveness.
Mm,
And the quote that I love says, "Forgive them not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve peace." And that's what it does. And so we're holding on to all these grudges and this person, my parents didn't pay for me to go to college, and this didn't happen, and that girl broke my heart, and that guy broke my heart, and this didn't happen, and that didn't happen. And then forgiveness for yourself. Oh, I had that
mhm,
opportunity, I didn't take it, and I didn't whatever. And you put so much energy into those ties to other people that don't deserve your energy, and into paths. In the quantum universe, what's the quantum theory is that it changes every minute based on your decisions, and there's millions of other universes out there. That's one of the theories. Let him go. So holding on to what could have been, what should have been, and just being where you're at, being present. That's why mindfulness and meditation is so important. Be here now. And so starting off with letting go of all these ties you have to, I've been done wrong, and that comes to being at cause or effect. This is a deeper subject, but are you at cause for your life, meaning that you're making things happen, or are you at the effect of life and stuff's happening to you? Changing that mindset is huge. That's the
mhm,
first big step. And it doesn't mean you're not at blame for what the bad things that happen. It just means that you had a part in it. And it's really about going forward. So you're driving the bus, you're going forward. And still, so based on forgiveness, and then based on limiting decisions from the past. We talked about that before, how you grew up.
mhm,
You have these thoughts, you have these beliefs from when you grew up. Those are tolling you back because those are unconscious filters that reflect how you see the world and how you interact with the world. So if you think, oh, if I make more money, I'm going to be an a-hole because someone in your
mhm,
life made a lot of money and was a jerk, then you might not, you don't consciously think that, but it's going to hold you back from making more
mhm,
money. And that's just one
mhm.
example, and there's other examples of relationship stuff like that, but that's the reality, is that letting go of that past and then that release comes from forgiveness also.
Yeah. Listening to you say that, it makes me think of your one of your key messages, which is you are enough, right? And I feel as though sometimes people hold themselves back because they just think that they're not enough. And it could be like it's for a lot of people when they hear the term you are enough, it feels impossible for them to believe
Right.
sometimes. Can you walk us through how you help somebody navigate that? Someone like like someone that says I am not enough. I do not believe you.
Usually starting with in NLP, it's all about the stories we tell, and I hate to keep saying that, but it's just so true.
Mhm.
So it's like, so you never achieved anything in your life. You didn't graduate school, you never played an instrument, you never, and this is, I
Mhm.
usually know something about them, so I know which chords to play, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so you start to allow them to see their successes through their life and let them see that they've achieved a lot. They might not be achieving all they wanted to, and that's fine. The they say the challenge in life is that you're perfect just as you are and you're going to get better.
Mhm.
And when we learn that, when we think that, that takes us further. So I start with somebody and I really let them see the past. We have this weird thing, this negativity bias that's just part of who we are, meaning we look for bad things because
Mhm.
that's that survival mechanism. So we're always looking for what's wrong. We're always looking for that tiger that's going to chase us, so to speak. That's how we're wired. No one's getting chased by a tiger in Winters, California. Maybe a mountain lion, but
Yeah.
that's that old way of thinking. And so we have that negativity bias. We look for what's wrong. We tend not to look for what's right. So I help them see what's right. I help them go back and discover those resources that they have inside that have always been there and they've used before, but now they've just forgotten them. And so by
Mhm.
reattaching where they're going with those resources gives them the strength to achieve what they want.
Right. Right. I wanna be able to give people something that they can take away actionable item-wise today too. Um, and, I love the quote that you provided, which is, "Just for today."
Mhm.
Uh, and as someone who has there's a lot of people out there that get overwhelmed by
Mhm.
looking too far into the future. So the phrase "just for today," how can our listeners how can they use that phrase practically? Is it like a morning mantra, or is it something that you say when your anxiety spikes? When is a good time to use that mantra?
You know, Starting your day with it is great.
Mhm.
And because you build that muscle. You
Yeah.
build that, it becomes a habit, and then you have that built into there. So if you start every day with just for today I will not anger, just for today I will, be of service, just for today I will not
Mhm.
speak badly, and go through those, whatever that is for you, every morning, and you just get used to that, then it goes in your toolbox. To your point,
Mhm.
so then during my day, and I still use it. I use it all the time. When I start getting uptight and I start thinking about the future and I got to do this, I got to do that, and I'm like, and I stop. I see a stop sign
Mhm.
in my head. I'm gonna stop. That's mine,
Mhm.
my thing. What can you do right now?
Mhm.
Just for today, Jason. Just for today. And it reminds me. And my physiology changes, my body my everything comes down that. So using it as a practice in the morning when you get up definitely builds that up. Use it. And then you can start seeing it throughout your day when you find, and the thing about overwhelm, when people are overwhelmed in my world, they're usually overwhelmed about everything. If you say, well, what are you overwhelmed
Sure.
about? Oh, everything, the world, this, and then this. Okay,
Yeah.
what specifically? And that's where I start. I say, well,
Yeah.
what specifically? Well, this. Okay, what about that? And then we drill
Right.
down. Okay, and what can you do about that? And it takes you out of that emotional brain and puts you into that analytical brain, which is better in the sense of taking you away from those emotions that are overwhelming you. And then you go, oh, well, I can do that. And that's part of the just for today. Well, just
Mhm.
for today, I can be happy just for today. Whatever it
Mhm.
is. Okay, that's easy. That's one
Yeah,
step.
sure. Yeah.
That's the first step of this journey. Got it. So building that in to your vocabulary is just it's wonderful. It's so impactful.
You had mentioned during your answer just now, being like, what can I do right now? And that actually leads directly into another question that I had, because another pillar that you have is be here now. And we for us ADHD folk, our brains are literally never here. And they're
Yeah.
usually all over. They're here, they're there, they're everywhere, all at the same time. What is the technique, whether it be from your NLP or mindfulness training, whatever it may be, that can help a person, especially if they have ADHD, kind of ground themselves back into the room, into the present moment?
There's a quote that says meditation is not an evasion of life. It is a
Mm,
serene encounter with reality. And that's what we think about. Meditation is not, oh, I'm going somewhere off. It's actually bringing you back to the present moment where you're at. Because once again, what are our brains doing? They're looking for solutions, looking for puzzles. That's what your brain does. Thank
mhm,
you. You know, but we also say in meditation, we say your brain is that chattering monkey in the trees. And you don't
mhm,
have to listen to it. You don't. You have the opportunity, and I understand there's degrees to it, and there's other issues going on, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. I mean, I want to honor that people have true medical conditions, that this happens.
Mhm.
And with that said, it's about grounding. There's a lot of techniques out there. And I don't want to be cliche, but the 5 4 3 2 1, where you stop and you look for five things you can see and four things you could
Mhm.
hear and three things, and that just takes you out of that your logistical brain trying to figure everything
Sure.
out. It's like, wait a minute, where am I at? Oh, I'm clearing in my office. I have even, I've been meditating since I was 8 years old. I teach this stuff, I train this stuff, and boy, but you get me in the shower in the morning, and I'm thinking about politics and this and my
Yeah.
business and that, and oh, this person said, and I have to stop myself and I go, where are you at?
Mm.
You're in your shower stall.
Mhm.
You're washing your hair, guy.
Mhm.
Oh, and it's just that catching myself and going, wait a minute, where are you at? Because we start, how many arguments do we have with people that may not even be living anymore, but we have these arguments about, oh, I'm going to meet this person, I'm going to say this, and they're going to say that, and I'm going to say this. Where are you? Oh, I'm sitting at my desk right now. I'm here.
Mhm. Yep.
So grounding yourself, and the best way is usually something physical. So whether you touch something physical, you touch yourself, touching your heart, that's something I really teach a lot, is you just put your hand on your heart and take that one breath, and it sounds silly, but it brings you back into your body. It brings you back into the moment, because every moment, what do we have? We have our breath. We took a first
Mhm.
breath, we're going to take a last breath. So just that's a reminder. I'm here, I'm present, I'm in the now. Where am I at? Oh, okay. And then you can go, well, what am I going to do about this other issue? I'm going to make a list. I'm going to whatever. So
Mhm.
just grounding yourself physically in the present moment usually takes you out of that analytical brain that's just running 1,000 miles an hour.
Sure. Does creativity help too? Because I know that you have a creative background, as you mentioned, you're a poet, you write, all of that. And I'm curious because I'm a creative person too. Unfortunately, my creative brain tends to spark up at night, so I'm a
Right.
night owl because of it
Right.
and all of that. Um, but I'm curious how creativity acted as a release valve for you, and do you think that everyone needs a creative outlet in order to process the heavy stuff that they have to go through every day?
I think so. And I would never say that, well, everyone has to, have this. And at the same time, I think it is very
Mm.
helpful. It is very
Everyone
good.
needs
It's
to write a poem right now. Write a poem right now.
exactly. We're going to pause, write us a poem, come
Yes.
back, tell us what you got. We're going to judge it.
Yes. I want your
No,
haikus right now.
575. Remember your
Yes.
pacing. Um, and so, yeah, but it's important because it allows you to. What it does is it brings you home and to yourself. Because what's your creative outlet? Something that you're passionate about, right? And it allows you to put that energy. Because once again, our brains are always spinning. It's
Mhm,
just it's can be out of control at times, and it allows you to focus. So it's like, a few years ago they talked about coloring, and that's a form of meditation. And so
mhm,
you color, and beyond that, writing music, writing poetry.
mhm,
I had a client that he was in a rock band, or a band. He
mhm,
had challenges, but that's where he found his home. That's where he settled down when he was up playing his guitar and trying to figure it out, because it invests your energy. You want to talk about be here now. When you're painting, when you're writing, when you're that, and I get writing is you're thinking of another story, but you're present in the moment. You're typing,
yes,
you're writing with a pencil, you're doing art, you're doing, whatever it is whatever it is that touches you, and you're fully present in that moment, and it keeps you. If you're painting and your mind starts wandering and you're thinking about other stuff, you're going to make a mistake, and it's going to call you back. It's going to be like, hey, I need your attention. If you're writing a story and you start thinking of another story, your story is going to call you back and say, this, hey, what about me? So you definitely having something creative is it's building that muscle, and it's burning that nervous energy. Your brain has a lot of what I call nervous energy. It's always
mhm,
going. It's just like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so whether you're doing a mantra, sitting in meditation, doing a mantra, or you're painting or writing, it jams that monkey brain. And so
Yeah.
creativity is very important. And when you're expressing yourself. And what does expressing yourself do? It's expressing yourself.
Mhm.
And it just brings you back to who you truly are. If
Yeah.
the world's getting you down and you like to write and you go write a quick haiku or a story or a poem,
Mhm.
you're like, you can go, yeah, I wrote this.
Yeah.
That's who I am. I'm not that silliness out there. This is who
Mhm.
I am. This is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. And it brings you back.
I love that. I love that. So I expect everybody's first stanza by end of day, end of business tomorrow, my friends. Jason, before we head out, there's just a couple more things I wanted to have you talk about. A lot of people, listen to this podcast, when they're doing something, whether it's, driving their car or doing errands around the house or whatever it may be. So I know that there's somebody listening right now that is in the process of actually doing some task.
Mhm.
What can they do as soon as whenever they finish the task that they're doing right now? What is just one thing that they can or should do just to start towards a path of mindfulness, of being in the moment, right here, right now? What's something that they can do?
So I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna do 2 things. I wanna say 2 things.
Yeah,
The one
yeah.
thing that we can all do right now, everyone thinks that meditation is this huge thing, and it's gotta be this, and I've gotta say this mantra, and I've gotta sit in this exact posture, and I have to have the moon jaws in my hands,
Mhm,
meditation is about being present in the moment. Find yourself in a room, maybe darken the lights a little bit, maybe put your hand on your heart, and just consciously take in an inhale and be present with it, and then exhale.
mhm.
And guess what, my friends? You just meditated.
There you go. There you go. I hope anybody that's, vacuuming their living room right now, I hope that, whatever you're doing right now,
Yeah.
that Jason's dropping knowledge. So, I know that's, I'm gonna definitely do that today. And the last thing that I wanted to ask you before we leave, and I always ask this of all my guests, if there's one thing that you want people to take away from our talk today, what is that one thing?
You're amazing just as you are now, and you're going to get better. Just know that you are amazing and that don't no matter what's been said, no matter what's happened, no matter what's been done, you're amazing because you're here and you're with us. And just recognize that greatness that you have within you and then take that next step.
I love it. I love it. Jason Jurado, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you, man. That conversation right there is exactly why I do this podcast. Sitting down with Jason was such a grounding experience for me. My biggest takeaway from this episode was honestly his incredible practical approach to mindfulness. It is so easy for our ADHD brains to get overwhelmed by the future and start spinning 1,000 miles per hour. But Jason's reminder to just put your hand on your heart and take one conscious breath and repeat that just for today mantra, that is something that I am actively adding to my own daily toolkit. Please, my friends, do yourself a favor and check out the show notes of this episode. I have linked all of Jason's information, his website, and where you can find his amazing work. He is doing some incredible things to help people come home to themselves, so make sure you go and support him. Another massive thank you to Sucreabeille for presenting our episode today. Do not forget to head on over to sucreabeille.com to grab our collab scent called Why Did I Walk Into This Room? And if you are looking for some free resources or blogs, or if you want to join my free email list, head on over to thevibewithkai.com. And if you ever want to dive deeper into this ADHD community, come join me in my little Viber family on Patreon, on Facebook for only $5 a month. You will unlock the reverse the mic segment that Jason and I did that you missed out on. So you got to go check it out. You got to go listen to it because he asked me some really good questions. You get access to that and my entire ADHD deep dive video library. And you get access to my private behind the scenes updates on my mental health and my life that you won't find anywhere else. Make sure you are following me at The Vibe with Kai across any social media platform. And please leave a review and rate the podcast and share this episode with someone who might need to hear this stuff today. Once again, my friends, thank you so much for watching and for listening. As always, much love, good vibes. I'll catch you next time. Bye.